You're crouched at the edge of a riverbed that hasn't held water in 11 months. The mud has cracked into plates the size of dinner tables. Somewhere under your feet, there's still moisture, but you have no shovel, no bottle, no idea how deep to dig. Right now, if your tap ran dry, you'd drive to a store, grab a case of water. Problem solved in 20 minutes. For most of human history, a drought like this one didn't last a season. It lasted years, sometimes decades. So how did ancient humans find enough food and water to survive when the land itself seemed to be trying to kill them? Everyone assumes the answer is simple endurance. Grit your teeth, wait it out, hope for rain. The truth is closer to detective work than willpower, and the evidence is buried in bones, teeth, and stone tools scattered across 3 continents. Start with South Africa's southern coast. In 2007, archaeologist Curtis Marion, working at Pinnacle Point near Mossel Bay, found something strange layered into 164,000-year-old sediment shellfish remains. Not fish bones. Shellfish, cracked open in a specific pattern timed to tidal cycles. That's a hard number worth sitting with. 164,000 years. Older than almost any other evidence of complex human food strategy. When inland grasslands dried into dust during a brutal glacial period, some populations didn't fight the drought head-on. They walked toward the coast and started eating differently entirely. So what changed? The whole survival equation. A shoreline doesn't care about rainfall the way a savanna does. Tides bring food twice a day, drought or not. That single behavioral shift, trading hunted meat for gathered shellfish, may have kept a founding population of modern humans alive during one of the harshest dry spells in our species' history. Here's where it gets stranger. Water itself wasn't always found by digging or walking to a river. In the Kalahari Desert, anthropologists studying the Sand People, one of the oldest continuously documented foraging cultures on Earth, have recorded a technique passed down for generations, locating swollen underground tubers and roots, some holding over a liter of drinkable liquid inside a single plant. No spring. No well. A root, sliced open with a stone tool, functioning as a canteen. That's not folklore. It's documented survival behavior still practiced within living memory. And it points to something the fossil record can't show directly. Knowledge, stored not in bone but in memory, passed mouth to mouth across thousands of years. But there's a problem with romanticizing this too much. Knowledge alone doesn't feed a group of 30 people through a decade-long dry spell. At some point, the land simply runs out of tubers to dig and shellfish to crack. So what happened when even the backup plan failed? They moved. Constantly, strategically, and much farther than most people assume. In 2017, researchers led by paleoanthropologist Eleanor Sherry, publishing through work connected to the Max Planck Institute, proposed something that reshaped how scientists picture early human populations, not one unified group migrating together, but small, scattered communities across Africa, each isolated by shifting deserts and green corridors that opened and closed with the climate. Genetic and fossil evidence pointed to population sizes sometimes numbering only in the low thousands, surviving in isolated refugia, pockets of stable resources, for tens of thousands of years at a stretch. Translation: humanity wasn't one story of survival. It was hundreds of separate, smaller stories, each one a group finding its own personal miracle in a corner of a dying landscape, waiting for the doors between refuges to open again. So how did ancient humans find food during massive droughts? Not through any single trick. Through redundancy, coastlines when the interior failed, buried water when rivers vanished, mobility when even that ran out. Layer after layer of backup plan, each one only necessary because the last one had already broken down. There's a fourth layer, and it's the one people underestimate most: each other. Zooming into the Kalahari again, ethnographic studies of sand hunting bands, the kind conducted across the 20th century by anthropologists like Richard Lee, recorded something specific. A single successful hunt, even a large one, was expected to be shared across an entire camp, sometimes 15 to 25 people, regardless of who made the kill. That's not generosity as sentiment. It's generosity as infrastructure. A hunter who shared meat today was owed meat on the day his own hunt failed. And during a drought, everyone's hunt eventually failed. Sharing wasn't kindness. It was insurance, built into the social contract, with no paperwork and no bank behind it. Everyone assumes the deciding factor in ancient survival was toughness. The strongest, fastest, most resilient individual making it through alone. The archaeological and ethnographic record tells a quieter story. The groups who survived droughts longest weren't necessarily the ones with the best hunters. They were the ones with the widest, most reliable sharing networks. So the obvious answer, humans found food because they were resourceful, isn't wrong. It's just incomplete. The real answer sits one layer beneath it. They survived because no single person and no single food source ever had to carry the whole burden alone. You're still crouched at that dry riverbed, and now you know what an ancient forager standing in your exact spot would have already been doing. Not panicking, scanning the horizon for green, remembering where the tubers grow, counting quietly who in the group still owed them a favor. That world required knowing your neighbors well enough to trust them with your life during the worst year in a decade. Somewhere between then and now, that trade went the other way. Full water, empty relationships. The drought didn't just test what people could find, it tested who they could count on, and that turned out to be the harder resource to run dry.